Ever wonder if you should use a traditional IRA? In this episode, we want to share some of the reasons why this account may not be the best for you or other high income earners. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friends. I'm Dr. Brittany Helford.
And I'm Dr. Alicia Taylor.
And of course, we're here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so you can create the life you desire with more control over your time. Alicia, can we talk about one of the most important money moves we've made as doctors? And I don't know about you, but for me, when I think about this, it's actually insurance. Yes, I know it's not sexy, but it is absolutely essential, especially disability insurance.
Facts. I got mine right after med school, before residency even started. And let me tell you, Prati Botto at PKA Insurance Group made the whole process so smooth. He actually cared, broke down everything, explained the fine print, and got me the best policy for the best price.
And what I love is that he treats everyone like that, residents, attendings, even docs on visas. He literally got you. He's super responsive, super knowledgeable. And if there's a better deal out there, he will tell you.
Oh, and if you're healthy, you could get approved for up to 10 million in life insurance. So not just disability insurance in only 5 minutes. No labs, no hassle.
So if you're serious about protecting your income and your family, call 1-800-258-1018.
Or email pradeep at pkainsurance.com. All right, Brittany, it's been a little minute since we've connected, and I see that you are in a new office space. Maybe it might be your husband's, that's what I'm assuming, but I'm not quite sure as I'm looking at you through this video, which I guess those listening can't see. But it has prompted me to say, what has changed in your life? Because I don't remember seeing that office space before. Enlighten us on what's going on with you.
Yeah, so I am on the third level of our home, which my husband typically occupies a space. It's actually a little bit dual purpose. It's mostly his office, but occasionally the kids will get up here and then they start bringing their toys. And so it kind of functions as a fifth or sixth play spaces. I don't know. These kids, they're just like everywhere. But I have been up since 5:45 this morning. I spoke with the cardiology fellows at a local hospital, and their conference starts at 7:15 a.m. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why do you have a conference that's so early? That is the first question. But whenever I'm presenting, and this happens to me similar to when I'm running, my body is a little anxious. So I just need a little bit more time to get myself settled. So I've been up for a while, but the talk went extremely well. A lot of great questions. And one of the questions that we'll talk about on this podcast episode today is, what is the utility of a traditional IRA, especially for high income earners? So that question comes up time and time again when I am speaking. So I'm happy to share a little bit as we dive into the financial focus later on in this episode.
All right. So I'm guessing your talk with the cardiology fellows was on finance because you're also a hospitalist. I'm like, I don't know if you're giving a lecture on hypocalcemia and how to keep patients alive, or if it's like, here's how you build wealth, which, both topics are important, but I'm guessing it was the latter.
Yeah, it was the latter. So we have a 3-part series planned, and this one was on retirement planning.
Ah, I see. I see. And just for cardiology fellows, are also internal medicine residents as well. Who was the audience mainly?
Just cardiology fellows, pediatric cardiology fellows, actually. So I will not be giving any talks to pediatric cardiology fellows unless they want to learn about some type of adult condition because I can't do kids.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even know there were that many pediatric cardiology fellows. It's so funny as you say that because medicine, I feel like, has gotten so subspecialized. These people probably have been in training for like 7 or 8 years, if not more, right? Because they went through internal medicine residency for 3 years after completing 4 years of medical school, after completing undergrad. And then after internal medicine, then they did cardiology, which I believe is another 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. And now they're in pediatric cardiology. It's like, okay, these are professional students at this point. So at some point, I'm supposing they would be making doctor money and they're like, Dr. Brittany Halford, help us out. What do we do once we start getting them paychecks?
They probably go the pediatric route. So they probably do a pediatric residency and
Ah, I
then do
see.
pediatric cardiology. But to your point, it is subspecialized because one of the chief residents, I was like, oh, this is your last year. And she said, no, actually, I'm going to do a heart transplant and heart failure fellowship. So it's like, even specialized. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, we definitely need those people in the world. Happy that they have committed it seemed like their entire lives to this training. I'm sure they appreciate you being like, okay, Brittany, we're not making that much right now, but at some point, Lord willing, we will be. Can you share with us some of the highlights from the talk that you gave?
Yeah. So one is something that we actually talked about recently on this podcast is what is appropriate asset allocation? How much do you need to save for retirement? And what does that look like for you? So we talked a lot about first addressing your goals, and then you just need a reasonable asset allocation. You don't have to be Warren Buffett out here. Just choose something that is reasonable. And what does that look like? And then one of the questions that was posed is, okay, once you get your retirement number, is that number going to be your 4 million or 3 million or whatever? Are you now investing that conservatively as opposed to investing that according to what we have defined as our appropriate asset allocation? So we really honed in on what is the risk tolerance? What is that time horizon? Because someone could get to that 4 million quite early and want to retire early. However, if they choose just more conservative investments that might be returning 3 to 4%, then what they risk on the back end is not having enough. So we really honed in on that. And then for them specifically, they're like, okay, how do we balance it all? Because here we are making a low salary, yes, more than residents, but we live in a high cost of living environment and we have all of these other things that we want to do. What would your recommendation be? How much should we be saving? Where should we be saving that? So for us, this particular cardiology fellowship group did not get a match. So I was like, my first goal for you would be to max out a Roth IRA. And you can do that with your salary and still be in a reasonable range. And then on top of that, evaluating your expenses, ensuring that they are things that add value to your life and save the difference. And so you can save the difference in a high yield savings account if you don't have an emergency fund or if you're trying to save up for a particular home. We talked about certificate of deposits and then doing some investing on their own. I hope that it was very informative for them. And I'm excited to talk to them about the other topics, which is student loan management and also preparing for home ownership.
Wow. You just dropped a lot of nuggets. And I'm sure people listening to this was like, hold on, Brittany, I think I might need that talk myself. But if I'm summarizing what you said, the first part of it was on asset allocation, right? What mix of investments should you have? A lot of people know they should invest. They may not necessarily know how to invest. And so it's good that you were giving us some tips along that lines. And then it seems like you were mentioning, hey, what accounts do I use? And you mentioned that the fellows at your institution, who are obviously doctors that are still in training, they don't have access to a retirement match, meaning they don't get extra free money by contributing to their work retirement accounts. And so, because of that, you told them, hey, instead of maybe focusing on that account that doesn't give you that incentive to contribute or invest there, instead, maybe open up a Roth IRA and contribute the maximum yearly allowance into that account, invest that money, focus on your spending and seeing if there are ways that you could cut back, and then focus on saving some cash, right? Maybe in a high yield savings account, you mentioned CDs or certificates of deposit. So I just wanted to highlight that because you said it so fast that I'm sure people were like, hold on, I need to write that down. What did she say? I'm sure you were dropping great gems. And for those who are listening, Brittany and I do oftentimes speak at not only our own institutions, but at other institutions. And so if you are listening to this and you're thinking, oh my goodness, the residents or the trainees at my institution, or heck, the faculty at my institution, or maybe you're like, I'm not even a doctor, but I know the employees, my colleagues where I'm working could use this information. Please don't hesitate to email us any speaking opportunities or whatever, especially as they relate to finance. We love giving talks at different organizations and are happy to potentially fit that into our schedule. You can email us wealthmindedmd@gmail.com for any opportunities or things or questions that you may have. And speaking of us answering questions and other opportunities, we do have a free masterclass coming up. That masterclass will take place on October 14th. That is Tuesday, October 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be talking all about negotiation and things to keep in mind as you prepare to hopefully advocate for yourself and get a raise. I know this is something that a lot of physicians, a lot of employees, a lot of people in general are not taught during their training. And it is a valuable life skill, whether you are trying to negotiate a raise or negotiate more schedule flexibility or something else to enhance your life. And so we'll be talking all about that. The masterclass is completely free. All you have to do is register. We'll put that link in the show notes.
Thank you, Leisha. I'm super excited. And as you're like, okay, negotiate a salary, negotiate a raise, I'm like, shoot, negotiate with your children, with your spouse. The negotiations are everywhere. So some of the skills that we have learned and that we teach, by all means, have helped me to negotiate many things outside of my career. But of course, they are very valuable in negotiations for a salary and for your career as well.
As physicians, one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that we secure our income because a lot of our financial plans are contingent on our high doctor income. One of the things that you will need to do is make sure that you get long term disability insurance.
Now, Pradeep and his team at PKA Insurance Group have a reputation for putting people over profits and always doing what's best. Do not hesitate to email PKA Insurance and his team today.
They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
All righty. Well, I am excited to talk about this in the financial focus is reasons why high income earners should not use a traditional IRA. Alicia, I think we talk often about, okay, here's the appropriate things to do, some of the pros and the cons of using one account versus the other. But this one is like a little bit of a soft spot in my heart because I hear the stories of how people take an old 401k and then they have a financial advisor and they're like, just roll it over into a traditional IRA here at my company or what have you, and I'll manage it for you. It gives you more investment options. There's some truth to that, but then there are also the drawbacks. Have you gotten a lot of questions about people using a traditional IRA and then maybe regretting it on the back end?
You know what, Brittany, to be completely honest, I haven't heard as many stories of people regretting it until I ask them some of these specific questions. I find that people are actually pretty content with their choices. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know, and ignorance is bliss a little bit. Not saying the
Yes.
folks I speak to are ignorant, but they may not have as much knowledge in this arena and just may not be aware of some of the drawbacks of this account. In fact, I find that oftentimes when I'm saying things like traditional IRA, they may have heard of that, but really what they've heard of is the IRA part. And they're like, oh, yeah, 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 I think I've heard of that before. And then I say traditional and Roth, and their eyes start to glaze over. And they're like, ooh, not sure which one I'm talking about, but I'm sure I got one of them. Kind of like when I'm talking to people about disability insurance. It's like you got to kind of have to explain why it's useful and start talking about the ins and outs before people are like, oh, okay, now I understand, right? You kind of got to explain it a little bit. And I find that this is the same case with an IRA. And so, just in case, Brittany, we've got folks listening that are like, ooh, Leisha, I think that's me. Can you maybe start us off by making sure we're all on the same level playing field and explaining what an IRA is and the two main types of IRAs?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Alicia, I always love that you take us back to the foundation to ensure clarity, no miscommunication here. Okay, so thank you for that. Okay, so IRA stands for Individual Retirement Arrangement. Basically, what that means is that this is separate from your workplace plan. This is an account that you will manage or someone else will manage for you, but it is not tied to your employer, which is great because, as I had mentioned, and as financial advisors often tout, it allows for a bit more flexibility. So that is fantastic. Now, when we talk about individual retirement accounts or arrangements, IRAs, then there are two flavors of those. First flavor is traditional. Traditional basically means pre tax dollars. So you put in money that has not been taxed or is shielded from taxation into that account. And when you pull it out at the time of retirement, since it's a retirement account, you will pay ordinary income tax on that withdrawal. Now, the other flavor of this account is a Roth IRA. And Roth just means that you're using after tax dollars to fund this account. And when you pull the money out during that time, it will be tax free. Since you've already paid taxes today, it's going to be tax free in retirement.
All right. Well, thank you for that. That's helpful in terms of the two different flavors of IRAs. And I'm sure someone may be thinking right now what's coming to mind, which is, all right, Brittany, if the only difference in these two accounts is when I pay taxes on the money, explain to me why I should want to pay the taxes right now. Because they might be similar to you and I. Like, Brittany, I'm trying to lower my taxes, not pay more taxes. So, can you explain to me why you're saying there's a downside? Because maybe they've heard from their financial advisor or their friends or on social media that the traditional IRA is better because they won't have to pay taxes on the money right now. So, but you're saying, I guess we're both are kind of doing this financial focus to kind of shed some light on why the traditional IRA may not be the most optimal choice for high income earners. And so maybe we can start there is why are you trying to convince us that we should be paying the taxes up front instead of deferring them until later?
Yeah, we'll talk through a lot of this and all of the reasons, but the first reason is that you get no deduction. Actually, even though it's a traditional IRA, which means that it's pre tax dollars, because many physicians, many high income earners are also covered by a workplace plan. And because of some of the high earning potential and our high income, that we actually don't meet the criteria to take advantage of that tax deduction. So, what that means is that we might consider that we're putting pre tax dollars in it, but we actually don't qualify for that deductibility for the traditional IRA deductions because we have a workplace plan that has a 401k or 403b, also because we are at a higher income. So for 2025 limits for deductibility of the IRA contributions, if you're covered by a workplace retirement plan, you have to make under 79,000 if you're single as a single filer or head of household filer. So under 79,000. If you're married filing jointly, you have to make for the full deduction under 126,000. And if you do married filing separately, you basically are not going to get any deduction. So if you make any money, then you likely will not get any deduction. So this is why it's so important because even though it is labeled as a pre-tax account that okay, I don't have to pay taxes on the money now. I could just wait and kick that can down the road. Well, hold on, because if you're covered with a 401k or 403b and you are a high income earner, then you actually don't qualify for saving taxes on the money that you put into this account.
Okay, so what I heard you say is you may think that you're saving money in taxes, but actually you are not. And so that is helpful to know. The reason why I wanted to emphasize this point, Brittany, and thank you because you did a great job of explaining it, is because this is the conversation that I had with one of my colleagues at work. We were talking about investing, we were talking about IRAs because I had asked her if she'd done a backdoor Roth IRA. And she was like, did what? And she said, girl, my accountant handles that. And I said, well, okay, well, just talk to your accountant or your financial advisor and ask her what kind of IRA you have. And she did. And she said, I have a traditional IRA and I've been contributing to my traditional IRA. And I said, is there a reason why you've been making that contribution? And she said, I believe I get a tax deduction. What I'm trying to highlight is that my physician colleague thought the same thing. She thought that, okay, traditional IRA is better because I'm going to get some sort of tax deduction from contributing to this account. What she did not know, and maybe what her accountant had missed or oversight or whatever, was that actually she didn't get any sort of tax deduction, right? She made too much money to get any sort of tax deduction from a traditional IRA. And what I hear you saying, Brittany, is even if you make under those thresholds that you just mentioned, if you have access to a workplace retirement plan, oftentimes you also are not eligible for this pre-tax deduction. And so, long story short, one of the reasons why a traditional IRA may not be the best account for some high income earners is because you actually don't get any sort of tax benefit from putting the money in the account. If there's a investment account where you get some sort of tax benefit and another investment account where you do not get a tax benefit, why would you choose the one that you don't get no tax benefit from? And so, as you mentioned, sometimes people are encouraged to use this account anyway because their financial advisor has told them, well, you may not get a tax deduction, but you'll have more investment options open to you, or for one reason or another. And what we're trying to say is like, there are other ways to also have more investment options open to you and still utilize accounts that provide some sort of tax benefit for you. And so thank you for that point of clarity because I think this is something that again a lot of people may not be aware of or a lot of people may have not really looked into. There are not as many high income earners out in this world, right? The average household income I think right now is around 60 or $70,000 a year. And so it may not necessarily be that your accountant is telling you bad information or that your financial advisor has ill intent. It may simply be that the majority of their clients are in a different tax bracket, make a different income, and so these rules are not as applicable to them. But because you are somebody different, because you are somebody who has a higher income, you do have to pay attention to these nuances. And it is these nuances that sort of make a traditional IRA not the most ideal account for those of us who are high income earners.
To your point, right? The financial advisor, I don't think that they are being malevolent. Like, I don't think they're trying to do you any harm per se. It's just that they don't know the trajectory of your life as well as you might. They might be accustomed to just giving some cookie cutter advice based upon their clientele, but you're a different breed as a physician or as a high income earner. So that's why we want to help you to understand some of the nuances of this account so you can get the greatest benefit. Alicia, one of the other ways that I see this account being used is to roll over an old employer's 401k into a traditional IRA. And the reason why this is promoted is because, again, you're like, okay, I have a traditional 401k, meaning that you contributed pre tax dollars into your employer sponsored plan, that 401k. But now you have to leave your employer like, what do I want to do? Do I want to keep this money here or do I want to do something with it? And one of the options is to roll it over into a traditional IRA. Remember, when you do a rollover, you're going from a pre tax account into another pre tax account because the traditional IRA is a pre tax account, right? And so your advisor might say, let's do that. It gives you more flexibility, gives you more options, and it will not trigger a taxable event. But when you do that, when you roll over those old funds into a traditional IRA, what it does is it puts you at risk for the pro rata rule. So, what is the pro rata rule? Basic pro rata means proportion. So, when you have any pre-tax IRA balance in any type of IRA. So that's a traditional IRA, any SEP IRA, any simple IRA, right? Pre-tax IRA money in those accounts. It makes the backdoor Roth conversions taxable. So let me give you an example of that. So say for this year, you're like, okay, I heard this podcast. Dr. Alicia and Dr. Brittany, they say, hey, I got to do this backdoor Roth IRA, no more traditional IRA. All right, so I'm going to do this backdoor Roth IRA thing. But now let's say that you had an old 401k that you had about 93,000 that you rolled over into a traditional IRA. And now you want to backdoor $7,000. So when it comes time to do the conversion, meaning that when you do a backdoor Roth IRA, you put the money in the traditional IRA first as a holding account because a traditional IRA doesn't have any income limitations, right? So anybody, regardless of what you make, can use a traditional IRA. So you're like, okay, I'm going to put that money in there as a holding account. I'm not keeping it in there this year. And then I'm going to convert it over into a Roth. So you're going to move it from the traditional IRA into a Roth IRA. And you're now using, you've learned something. So you're putting after tax dollars in the traditional IRA that's going to be intended for the backdoor Roth IRA, and you convert that over. When you do that conversion, because 93% of that account has pre-tax dollars, that means that now 93% of that $7,000 becomes taxable. And depending on what your tax rate is, you're going to pay taxes twice on the money that you are converting. So, Alicia, I know you're going to clarify this for everybody, but this is one of the harms is that you just don't want to have any money in these accounts because when you go to do your backdoor Roth IRA, it makes a portion of that money taxable again. And who wants to pay taxes twice?
Yeah. And this is, I think, an important rule, but one that can really confuse a lot of folks. And I think that there are several questions that many people have along the way. The first question may be, what is a backdoor Roth IRA and why would I even be doing that in the first place, right? We mentioned IRAs, how there's two different flavors, traditional and Roth. Well, one of the things that we didn't mention in this episode was that when you make over a certain amount of money, you cannot contribute directly into a Roth IRA. And so the only way that you can get money into a Roth IRA is if you contribute indirectly. And the process of contributing indirectly to a Roth IRA is this process that we call the backdoor Roth IRA. And the reason why folks go through the quote unquote trouble of doing the backdoor Roth IRA and contributing indirectly to this account is because a Roth IRA actually does have a lot of tax benefits. The main one being that you put the money into the account, it grows tax free, and you can take the money out of the account tax free. And so when you're thinking about, all right, Who wouldn't want uses of money when they retire? A lot of people are going to need a lot of money when they retire. And one of the cool things about a Roth IRA is you don't have to pay taxes on the money when you take it out of the account. So if you need the money for something, you don't have to worry about incurring taxes when you want to pull that money out of the account. The other good thing about a Roth IRA is that it has a lot more flexibility. You can usually withdraw money from a Roth IRA if you want to use a portion of it to buy your first home, for example, if you have high healthcare expenses. So there's all these like exceptions that allow you to take money out of a Roth IRA account. And so for a lot of folks, they want to put some money in there. If you're somebody who's trying to invest money and build wealth over the future, one of the things you want to prioritize is I'm going to invest money in certain accounts that won't make me pay as much in taxes. And the Roth IRA is one of those accounts that will prevent you from having to pay so much money in taxes. And so as you're, building your net worth and trying to invest, you're saying, all right, I want to put some money in that account because I'll pay less taxes when I take the money out of the account if I use it. And so you're thinking, okay, what's one way I can get money into that account? I got to do the backdoor Roth IRA process, which we have an entire episode and we'll link it in the show notes where we talk about how to do that backdoor Roth IRA. But anyway, you might be doing that backdoor Roth IRA, right? Because you want to put money into that account. And Brittany, what I believe you were saying is that, all right, if anybody is trying to do the backdoor Roth IRA, and you also put money in a traditional IRA, you're going to face double taxation, which basically means it may not be as beneficial to you, which means you're going to be paying more money to the IRS than you probably should. And so this is one of the main reasons why you might want to avoid transferring the money in an old 401k from a prior job into a traditional IRA. Right? It's because when you go to do the backdoor Roth IRA process, you're going to be taxed twice on that. You're going to incur extra taxes that definitely are going to want to try to avoid. And so it's because of this whole pro rata rule thing. And so this is yet another reason why rolling money from an old jobs 401k, opening up a traditional IRA may not be the best move for high income earners.
And one of the things that you mentioned is the Roth IRA is tax free, but putting money into a traditional IRA is tax deferred. And that's another reason why I don't really recommend a traditional IRA for high income earners is because it just kicks the tax can down the road of when you can use the backdoor Roth IRA and pull the money out tax free. And we don't know what our taxes are going to be in the future, right? So why not have some diversification of our taxes? We already are using our 401ks, our 403bs, and maybe have some pre-tax dollars in those accounts. But using a backdoor Roth IRA opposed to a traditional IRA also allows us to diversify our tax strategy and to make that money tax free. And I don't know about you, but I'm stacking my coins over here. So when in retirement, I might want to withdraw a little bit more than what I'm currently making. And if that is the case, then that means that my future taxes will be higher. So instead of just deferring taxes until later and potentially costing me more, why not pay them now and have the benefit and the peace of mind that I have some tax free money in retirement?
Yeah, I like that tax diversification because I think it's really important. I think there were some prior studies, and I forget the source of them, that said the majority of physicians and high income earners have most of their wealth wrapped up in retirement accounts. A lot of us, that's the main way that we invest. We invest money by contributing to our jobs, 401k, 403b, TSP, 401a, those kinds of accounts. And so, as you mentioned, Brittany, if we've already got a substantial amount of money in those accounts, usually the money in those accounts are in those sort of pre tax accounts, meaning when we withdraw the money in retirement, we're going to be paying taxes on that amount. And so, if we've already got a substantial amount of money that we already are going to have to pay taxes on when we withdraw it, why would we add more to those kinds of accounts, right? Why not instead open up and do the backdoor Roth IRA process so we can have more tax diversification? So I'm not saying that you shouldn't utilize your job's 401k or 403b. What I am saying is as you utilize that account, maybe you also contribute money to the Roth IRA so you have a little bit more tax diversification when you retire and start withdrawing money from these different accounts.
When we think about the withdrawals, right? Okay, I want some money. I'm going to withdraw this because I want some money. And then there are those required minimum distributions where Uncle Sam is like, hey, you've been holding on to this for too long. I gave you the tax deferral when you put the money in. I allowed it to grow tax free. Now it's time for you to pay up. Now it's time for you to pay me my taxes, what is due. And starting at age 73, and then I know the Secure 2.0 Act kicked this can down the road to 75, but we will all likely need to make distributions from our pre tax accounts. However, If we do the backdoor Roth IRA instead of the traditional IRA, then that Roth IRA has no requirement for the minimum distributions, which is really nice because that means that I can let that money grow until I'm 93 and then I could just pass it on to my kiddos or to my grandchildren and allow that money to grow tax free into perpetuity if I desire. Another benefit that I really like about backdoor Roth IRAs or Roth IRAs in general that a traditional IRA just doesn't give us.
Yeah, because who wants the government dictating how much money you have to take out the account and when? I certainly do not. And what you are saying is that in a traditional IRA, the government can do that, right? Once you reach a certain age, and sometimes it will change based on the legislation that Congress has passed at the time. But when you reach a certain age, the government basically dictates and says you have to withdraw X amount of dollars from this account each month or each year or whatever it is. So you have more stipulations. And what you're saying, Brittany, is that a Roth IRA actually doesn't have those same stipulations. And so you can take out as much or as little as you want whenever you want. So again, more flexibility in the Roth IRA than you have in the traditional IRA.
Now that we've talked about that, I know you all are probably thinking, well, it's just $7,000. Do I really want to go through all of this hassle for just $7,000 per year or $8,000 if you're 50 and above in 2025? And I want to say, yes, you do. Yes, you want to go through this process, but you want to ensure that you are doing it in, again, that account that gives you some tax diversification. Because as you are thinking about, okay, I can only put $7,000 in here, how do I make it work for me? How can I allow this money to grow in a way that benefits me most? So, yes, the Roth IRA affords a limited contribution, but you still want to do it. And if you're like, okay, well, is there another place that I can put this $7,000 or $8,000 if you're older than 50? Then I say that, yes, there are other places. If you don't wanna go the backdoor route and you wanna put the money somewhere else, let me give you a couple of options. So, another option that I see people failing to use is a healthcare savings account. And a healthcare savings account allows for you to have even more flexibility. So, if you're like, "I don't wanna use the backdoor Roth IRA, and I was putting my money in a traditional IRA, but I was not using some of these other accounts like an HSA, not capitalizing on an FSA," then you might want to move money into those accounts or a portion of that money into those accounts to give you more benefit. So let me break down a little bit about an HSA. HSA is a healthcare savings account. And essentially, what I love about this HSA, it can be a triple tax advantaged. What do I mean by that? When you put the money in as pre-tax, right? So you're not paying taxes on the money that goes into the account. You can invest it like you invest any of the money in any of your brokerage accounts or your 401k, your Roth IRA. And so you can allow it to grow, you can have compounded interest. And then when you take the money out, during retirement or at any point in time for medical expenses, you're not paying taxes on that money. So if you have access to an HSA or at least have access to a high deductible healthcare plan, instead of putting that $7,000 in a traditional IRA, now let's think about funding an HSA. For 2025, if you're single, you can put 4,600 in there. And if you have a family, then you can put 8,300 in there. So this is another way that you can use some of that money that you were putting in a traditional IRA and still get a lot more benefit from it, even though you're like, oh, okay, it's just a little bit of money. Well, let's now use this money in a different account to really maximize the value of that. I also mentioned a flexible spending account. Now, that has a lower contribution limit, which is about 3,000. It's use it or lose it. So you only want to use a flexible spending account if you're going to have those expenses, those Medicare, dental, and vision expenses.
I agree with you, Brittany, is looking at other tax advantage accounts that may be available to you. Not everybody has an HSA available to them. It really depends on the kind of health insurance plan that they have chosen. But if you have an HSA available to you, right? If you have a high deductible health insurance plan that allows you to contribute to an HSA, then I agree. That is a lovely account to utilize and think about investing money into. Speaking of HSAs, I've gotten a question recently with somebody who has an HSA and wondered if they should still put money in the account, even if they don't have any upcoming healthcare expenses. Then that was a great opportunity for me to say, hey, not only is this an account for healthcare expenses, but it's also a triple tax free investment account. And so you don't have to just utilize the money when you have healthcare expenses. You can actually put money in the account, have that money being invested and invested over time, and take it out in other years in which you might have healthcare expenses. Even if you don't have healthcare expenses right now in the short term, maybe you're young and healthy, you can keep investing money in that account for when you might need it later on. And so if you have access to that account, it's definitely something to consider investing in.
Now, thinking about, okay, maybe not today. Like all of this stuff doesn't matter to me today, but what about later on? That's one of the things that I always like to talk to resident physicians and also fellows about because when you use a traditional IRA, you're like, okay, I could just use it today and then I switch it all over later. That's adding a level of complexity to your finances that is not needed at this time. So, another reason why I don't like traditional IRAs for high income earners or potential high income earners is because of the complexities that we've already mentioned. There would be this administrative burden if pro rata rule or pro rata issues. And so, if you have any of that pre tax money in this account, you got to figure out a plan. What do I do with it? Do I convert it and pay the taxes? Do I try to roll it over into a 401k, et cetera, et cetera? And then you also have to think about okay, now if I have it established, then do I want to keep using it? Do I want to get rid of it? What are my options here? And because it adds that level of complexity in the future when you become a high income earner, if you're not a high income earner now, my question to you is like, why would you do something that you know is going to be an issue later when you can avoid the issue entirely? And so that's why I really recommend not using this account just for simplicity's sake in the future if you're not currently a high income earner.
It's interesting how much our income can really shape the kinds of investments that are open to us and the type of advice that we should follow. And I think what you just said really highlights the need of one, delving into the weeds on this and really kind of understanding these nuances. But I think for a lot of people, they're like, look, Brittany, I can't necessarily keep up with all this. And so one of the things that we would encourage you to do is whomever is helping you manage your finances, maybe it's a financial advisor, some other similar person or entity, is making sure that they are familiar with folks that make similar salary as you do and folks that have a similar income trajectory that you do. Because I think this just really highlights the need and the importance of making sure that you have tailored advice instead of what you mentioned earlier, Brittany, which is cookie cutter advice. Because I think that a lot of people, they'll say, oh, if you're doing this, you should use this account. If you do this, you should use this account. And people kind of follow these algorithmic types of investment advice. You'll see that on social media. You might hear that amongst other colleagues or whatever, but it's really important, I think, to make sure that you're getting tailored advice so you can understand who might benefit from these certain kind of investments and these certain kinds of accounts to ensure that you have the flexibility that you desire in retirement.
Yes, yes. And talking about just ensuring that you get the advice that you need, ensuring that you really understand the advice that you are being given. I would interview any type of financial professional that you incorporate into your financial community and just say, what do you typically do in these situations? If you're not a high income earner yet, but you will be. So ask them those types of questions. What advice would you give for someone who wanted to do this to get a glimpse of how are they thinking about you and your income potential? And I think that that would be really helpful. That's something that I do is like, okay, let me just put out this hypothetical situation. I'm not there yet, but I will be there. And I want to ensure that I don't have to constantly look for a new financial professional. So, Leisha, I'm really happy that you brought that to our attention. All right. Well, I think it's time to talk about some fun money. What do you think?
I like that idea. I like that idea. This might be a little TMI. I am considering laser treatment. So that's something fun that I'm considering doing with money. As females, or even, probably no matter what gender you are, you probably have some sort of area of your body that you shave on a semi regular basis. So for a lot of folks, maybe it's shaving, maybe it's threading, maybe it's waxing or whatever it is. And it's so funny. I was at a housewarming with some of my girlfriends, and I don't know how the topic of hair removal came up. Probably drinking a little too much. And one of the things that some of the folks that were talking about was laser treatment and how it can be really helpful for the skin. It can prevent some sort of, skin blemishes that folks may have. Also, it will decrease the need to shave as often, and how a lot of the laser treatments are permanent or semi permanent. And so I thought, well, that sounds nice. And so I, have an upcoming consultation at a salon to potentially get laser treatment. So that's something fun that I'm thinking about doing with money, is just having the slice of ease and simplicity and decreasing some of the things on my plate. And so if I can help out in the grooming department, I'm like, well, why not? So again, probably TMI, but this is something fun that I'm thinking about doing with money.
Well, I'm not trying to burst your bubble. Imma pop it a little bit. When you get down and you sit down for those laser treatments, you're not gonna think that it is fun, let me tell you. Yeah, you'll have to let me know how it goes. I did this probably when I was in medical school, so I'm dating myself. I'm not gonna tell you how many years that was, but, it was a long time ago. And I know that the technology has advanced significantly since that time, so you'll have to let me know. It might be something that I'll be interested in doing again. When I did it when I was in medical school, they had to use a lower energy because I am a brown skin girl with black hair, but because there's not a difference in my skin tone and my hair color, they wanted to ensure that they wouldn't be burning the skin and that they could zap the hair. So that required a few more treatments than probably someone with a lighter skin tone. One of the benefits that I saw is that I got a lot of ingrown hairs, and so it helped me to reduce my ingrown hair. So that was great, but the hair still grew back every time I, shaved it.
You're like, girl, it did not really work.
But it did help with something that I was troubled by. So I hope that at least you get some benefit, and you'll have to let me know now that the technology is better.
Okay, well, now I'm disappointed. Thank you so much for bursting the bubble, because you effectively it's popped now. It's effectively popped. But we will see. We will see. When you go in, I'm sure they make you sign all these waivers saying that there's no guarantees and how your skin might react and all of that good stuff. So we shall see. I think I'm at the point in my life where I'm trying to live a life of ease. And I'm just like, okay, let's see if this works, so that at least I can spend maybe a little less time in the shower each night and whatever. And so not having to think about all of the grooming needs as I go on vacation and go on certain trips. And so I'm just trying to see if it'll make my life a little bit easier. So I am going to have my fingers crossed. And apparently now I need to send a prayer up to the one above to see if it works for me. So I will let you know if I am happy or disappointed with the results.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you'll see the results over time. So maybe we'll check in about 3 months. I was going to say something different, but now we're on this topic of grooming. One of the things that I've been considering, but kicking the can down the road, so audience, let us know if this is something that you've done, is microblading for my eyebrows.
Mm.
And, I typically have very thick eyebrows, but as I'm getting older, I've also suffered at times from alopecia. I think that sometimes I have like little spots of alopecia within my eyebrows as well. So, as you have mentioned, making grooming a little bit easier, just being able to wake up and not have to do all of the things helps with peace of mind, convenience, and being able to show up as your most confident self. So, there's a lady who owns a salon, actually, like maybe 600 feet from where I live, not that far. And she does it, but I've been kind of dragging my feet. What are your thoughts? I know you did some things to your eyebrows because they're always looking fabulous. So let us know because this is like $800 investment, and I don't know if it's really worthwhile, but that is something that I've been thinking about doing.
Oh, I encourage you. The people that I know that have gotten microblading really love it. I did something slightly
Mhm.
different. I did ombre, which is similar, but not exactly the same thing. And I like my eyebrows. However, this is a big however. I wish, so this is me giving you a little bit of tidbit of advice. I wish that I had actually gone in and known exactly the shape that I wanted. And I did not. And the reason why this matters, I think, is because when I used to get my eyebrows like threaded all of the time, I never went to the threading place and said, thread them like this. I just expected some sort of cleanup. But when you
Mhm.
go to get your eyebrows done, and I think this is the same if you're doing ombre or microblading, they have you like grow out the hairs like entirely. And so when my eyebrows are growed out, girl, there is no shape. Okay. When you show up, there's no natural shape to your eyebrows. And so they're just kind of going on feel. And if you don't tell them exactly what you want it to look like, it may not lend you the kind of results that you may desire. So it's not that I don't like mine. I just think if I would have gone in, if I could do it again, I think that I would say, oh, actually, I want the arch a little bit higher here and make it a little longer here and come in with the exact kind of shape. And so I think that if you were to do that, of have not only like, oh, I want them cleaned up, but have the exact kind of shape that you want on your eyebrows,
Mhm.
then I think you'll really love the results because, as you mentioned, you can just wake up and not have to do your eyebrows and it's not permanent. So, if Lord forbid, if you hate the results, it's not like on your face for forever, but it does last a pretty long time. I believe microblading might be like a couple of years. Even for that couple of years, if you want to try it and see how you like it, I think you should go for it. So, I'm going to encourage you to do that.
Okay, okay, thank you. I have a question. I imagine that it still grows in other areas. Do you still pluck that hair, or what do you do for the hair that grows in and that's not shaded?
Again, TMI for our audience who is like, I am not interested in how Leisha grooms her eyebrows, but I do, but not everybody does. The reason why I
I see.
do is because the way that she formed the shape of my eyebrows, I naturally have hair that would grow in that area. And
Mhm.
so that hair that would naturally grow in that area will continue to grow, if that makes sense. But other folks, the way that they make the shape of their eyebrows, they do it in a pattern. Maybe their eyebrows are a lot thicker than mine or whatever. And so they don't have to pluck as much. So it really just
Mm,
depends on how thick or thin you want the eyebrows and how they
I
draw the
see.
shape on. So yes, I still pluck, but not nearly as often as I used to. And to
Okay.
be honest, the eyebrows will look good regardless of whether you pluck or not. Now, obviously, they look better
Mm. Mhm, mhm, mhm.
when I'm on it. But if I'm not on it, such as right now, but you can't really see through the screen, thank you, Jesus. It's like, okay, they could look better, but they don't look bad.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Nice, nice, nice. All right, people. Sorry for, sending you down a rabbit hole regarding grooming, but grooming is important to all of us. My husband spends times grooming, and I'm sure if there's like some guy talking about beards and how to make your beard look nice and full, he would be paying attention. All right. Well, hopefully you learned just a few of the reasons why Alicia and I don't recommend traditional IRAs for high income earners. And again, our whole purpose on this podcast is to educate you to make wise money decisions. And we hope that we have helped you to do that. And we thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please feel free, if you haven't already, to rate and subscribe. Leave us a little love note in the comments and your review. And if you have any questions like, oh, well, I have this traditional IRA, what should I do with it now? Feel free to click the link in the show notes and tell us about your situation, and you'll get our 2 cents on your situation. And until next time, we thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hello, and thank you for listening to our podcast. And because of that, we have something for you, our Wealthy Minds Blueprint.
Have you ever thought to yourself, I wish I could be better with money? Do you want to start investing and saving for retirement, but keep delaying because you don't know where to start? Our Wealthy Minds Blueprint is here to help.
This guide will teach you what you didn't learn in your training so you can stop being confused about money and start taking what we call wealthy minded action.
We'll help you become a master of your finances and simplify investing so you can get started today. Take control of your financial future by downloading your free copy of the Wealthy Minds Blueprint now and start building the wealth you deserve.
One of the most important things you can do is ensure you have long-term disability insurance. Long-term disability insurance secures your income if the unexpected happens and you are unable to work due to medical illness, chronic conditions, or an accident.
Unfortunately, all insurance agents aren't created equal. Some of them are so focused on making a sale that they fail to reveal certain necessary information, tell you about discounts available, or clearly explain the process. Prati Botto and his team at PKA Insurance Group are different. They have a reputation of putting people over profits and always doing what's best.
If you need life insurance or disability insurance, reach out to Pradeep and his team today. They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittany Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisa Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, you know. So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.